My name's Eugene Worley, and along with my wife Glenda, we have spent nearly 50 years in ministry in Ethiopia, Norway, the UK, and in the US. I'd like in these podcasts to share with you some of our experiences from those years. Journeys on Ethiopian roads. Returning to Ethiopia after nearly 30 years, the greatest challenge for the churches was to train more workers. There were many who desired to serve the Lord, but there was not a program that would allow them to work and study at the same time. The evening classes we set up were ideal for this. In September 1999, the Ethiopian Baptist Bible College officially opened with a total of 75 in attendance and 17 prospective students. Needless to say, it was an exciting day for pastors and churches. I had been asked to serve as president and director of the college, but it was my personal goal to prepare the college for Ethiopian leadership in both the administration and the teaching staff. We began with classes 4 evenings each week. We used a block or modular form of teaching until we had sufficient teaching staff. The block form of teaching involved teaching one class for 3 weeks with only one class. Then we would begin another class. The first class that I taught was the inductive method of Bible study, and there were 22 enrolled in that class. One student commented, "With this very small course fee, the training I got was priceless." The course fee covered some of the costs for providing materials. That comment was a great encouragement. We also taught study techniques, a survey of the Gospel of John, and a survey of Bible doctrine. We taught an English class since all higher education in Ethiopia is taught in English. All these were practical classes for serving in the local church. Our students were very poor, as many had come from the regions greatly affected by the famine, and they came to Addis Ababa looking work. One of our students told me that his wife was expecting a baby at any time, and I asked him what it would cost for the birth of his baby. He said it would cost $37 US, but he only made $23 US per month. So I was glad to help him with that expense. Sadly, their baby was born with spina bifida and developed meningitis. The baby only lived a few days. In spite of this, their faith was strong, and they were a great testimony. I was busy preaching each Sunday at different churches. I was asked to bring a series of messages on different topics or from a book of the Bible. One of the churches sponsored a mission 30 miles outside of Addis Ababa, and they asked me to come out and speak once a month. This was rewarding as we saw some high school students come to Christ. We later had 10 baptisms from that mission. They had also started a kindergarten as well as a feeding program through the sponsorship of international aid. On another trip, 4 hours outside of Addis, we visited the home of a man who came to Christ many years ago prior to the revolution, but had spent 26 years in the military. He came back to his family home and began farming. He was recognized by the Ministry of Agriculture for using new methods of farming. He and his wife were trying to have a baby. She had been involved in Satan worship before she came to Christ and was following the local witch doctor's advice concerning how she could have a baby. We warned her against going to the witch doctor and prayed for her that God would give her a baby. This was so common in that area. In fact, there was a mountain in that area that was widely known as Devil's Mountain. People would go to the mountain to pray and offer sacrifices to Satan. In another town, there was a witch doctor who was well known, and many wealthy people came to him and paid him for advice. Though Islam and the Orthodox Church are the main religions in Ethiopia, animism is practiced by both. Animism believes that a spirit is present in objects, places, and creatures. Therefore, rivers, mountains, trees, and rocks are often worshipped. It was very common for people to take offerings or make sacrifices to places they considered sacred. In reality, this was Satan worship and has a very strong hold on people. I usually made these trips with a local pastor, and we would stay in whatever accommodation that we could find. They were certainly not a Holiday Inn. In fact, I told Glenda after one of my trips that I paid 90 cents for a room, but I didn't get my money's worth. She laughed and said she was happy for me to go on those trips, and she was happy to stay home and pray for me. Those trips gave me the opportunity of seeing the great need in Ethiopia. We were told that 3/4 of the country lived a 3-day walk from a main road. In recent years, the Chinese and the Japanese have built new roads. But one source gave this description of the roads in Ethiopia. I quote, "Roads in Ethiopia are poorly maintained, inadequately marked, and poorly lighted. Road travel after dark outside Addis Ababa and other cities is dangerous and discouraged due to hazards posed by broken down vehicles left in the road, pedestrians walking, stray animals, and the possibility of armed robbery," unquote. This was certainly an accurate description prior to 2008. We were advised not to travel at night. On one occasion, I was taking some new missionaries to the countryside, and it was dark before we returned to Addis. I was driving up the mountain slowly and suddenly felt the impulse to stop. And when I did, I saw a stalled truck loaded with logs that were longer than the bed of the truck. There were no tail lights or any type of warning signal. Had I not stopped, the logs would have gone through the windshield and killed us. We quietly thanked the Lord for protecting us. There was no question as to where that impulse to stop came from. There are over 80 different languages with over 200 dialects in Ethiopia. This makes it challenging in ministering in different areas. One memorable conference in southern Ethiopia was an occasion where I spoke in English and had an interpreter to translate it into Amharic, and a third interpreter who translated it into the local language. This was a very interesting experience. Fortunately, the interpreters were very good and could translate almost as fast as I could speak. The biggest problem came in waiting for my turn. After my message was translated into Amharic, I would often begin speaking again, forgetting to wait for the second interpreter. No wonder some have called interpreters interrupters. We have studied Amharic in 1968 and 69. That was the official language at the time. And then when we returned in 1998, we hired a private tutor as a refresher. However, Amharic is a difficult language that requires years to be proficient in. And the fact that we worked in the Bible Institute, which primarily used English, we relied on interpreters, or should I say interrupters. This is podcast number 20, and if you've not listened to our other podcasts, please do so, as they start in 1968 when we first went out as missionaries. These podcasts come out each Wednesday with more stories of our ministry in Ethiopia.